Hello and welcome back to the Painted Mini. My name is Travis and it's been a long time. This year's been a little bit crazy with my job, so I'm a little late getting this one out. I thought I had kind of finished the Dune series up until I decided to tackle the expansions, but then I had kind of a crazy idea for the buildings and I wanted to share this with you and see what you think. So I kind of was thinking that these buildings are largely molded in and around the rock, and I kind of wanted to create some marbled rock effect. So what came to mind is I had seen people using these dipping paints. These acrylic, are actually called Easy Marble is the brand I have, marbling paint. And again, it is acrylic, so not too far off from what we normally do. I want you to just kind of watch and see what happens here if you're not familiar with these. That's just water, and I put a little bit of one color, and you notice it really disperses pretty thin, just into a film across the top of the water. And then I add a second color, a little darker. And that one doesn't disperse. That one kind of clumps, as does this one. So I have a few colors here. And then what I ended up purchasing separately that didn't come with the initial kit was clear. And that ended up making a pretty big difference. So that's what that is right there. And it just has that same water oily dispersion quality without having a color. So it actually gives you more neutral space. And I'm just looking for a ribbon of color to dip it in. Ribbons are on the edge here. And it really is, you'll see from the video, and definitely if you try it, it's like a film that just floats on top of the water. Now, if you wait too long, the film gets a little too filmy, too sticky, too plasticky. So you kind of have to time it out right. And here I'm just clearing all of it out. You just swirl your stick around and it'll all stick to your stick and you can wipe it off. So I'm just clearing the water basically for the next little batch. So here again, sprinkle some. Second color. And there's the clear. It just kind of opens up little pockets. And then I use a stick to kind of swirl it. Try to get those good color ribbons. That might mimic natural stone layering. Dip it, pull it up. But it's fairly inexpensive, fairly harmless. If you mess something up, you can simple green the paint off of there, which I ended up having to do at one point. See how filmy it gets right there? See all that very plastic. But it kind of gives a marbled stone effect. Here I'm just going like concentric circles inward. And the clear in the center. And that clear just opens up these nice areas. You see I've almost waited too long before stirring because it's already filming up really bad. There you can kind of see some of the initial marbling. I'm mostly here trying to stick with the earth tones. Oh, this is the, is that Arrakis? And I just did a zenithal highlight using Citadel sprays. I usually use a mechanical gray and then either a Corax white for the brighter highlight. Is it actually called Mechanicus or something? I don't know. There are places where the ribbon of paint might bridge a space or a gap. So I just am trying to push it down and reconnect, make sure all the acrylic is touching the model and not creating a little air bridge between two corners or two pieces. But just check it. You might need to kind of poke a couple pieces to get it to connect to the surface. Well, that's a tiny bit messy. It's also fun. The biggest problem as far as mess goes is just the inside of whatever you're using for your water. Here I'm using just an IKEA, it's like a little IKEA storage container. But that stuff is a pain to get out. Trying to scrub it out of there. So you might want to use something that's not like your normal. Now these I painted really dark, and I'm going in with a real kind of light rosy ribboning. So this is much more subtle. It doesn't really show on camera all that great, but you'll kind of see it a little bit toward the end when I do a close-up. It's going to look like these are from a darker stone, give it a more subtle effect. So the trick is when you plunge it in, you're trying to look for a good place you can keep it underwater. And you're looking for a good place to surface it where you're not going to pick up a lot of extra stuff on the way out. But again, just you can play with it. Just take a couple of old minis and do a couple test runs. And if you do end up junking up your minis, just soak them in simple green, brush them back out, and try it again. And some colors disperse like a thin layer, and others clump together. This kind of depends on the quality of the color. So again, just trial and error. So I've created a darker ribbon of red. And I should have set a set focus on these because my camera's having a hard time knowing what it's supposed to be focusing on here. All right, next batch here. And you'll notice you have about 30 seconds after you create a pod of, the ribboning you want. You have about a good 30 seconds before you kind of need to stop and clean it up and redo it. Ooh, that's some good marbling there. So these are the same minis. I did the red ribbon. Now I'm going in with the brown and reddish brown. See a little bit more variety on it. There's about as good as we're going to see on camera. Let's see, there's a little variation there. It's just hard to see the dark ones, but that first one to the right, you can kind of see that it's got pink, it's got purple, it's got some almost gray ribboning going through it. A little bit of brown, or kind of a taupe. And I just go in here and I'm painting up the little spire caps in gold. And my effect is really trying to make it look like it's cut and sculpted right out of the rock. Where if you're a purist, I think most of the stuff that the Harkonnens and the Atreides would have built would actually have been plasticrete. So here I'm going to do some brush on primer so that I can now go and paint some of the rock around. So I have some different, not only the natural marbly stone, but some indigenous rock around it. Just to kind of break up the design a little bit. And if I were just using regular paint, I probably wouldn't reprimer here. I'm just doing it because the marbling paint has a much different texture to it. Definitely has a rubbery, plasticky, almost porous feel. So I want to definitely cover that with primer before I paint over it. And I'm going to do the base rings. And this is the my usual sand color I've been using throughout. So I just thinned it down 3 to 2. I'm using the war paint stabilizer instead of water. And again, the matte marbling shows up really well on the color buildings, the Sieches, and not so well on the Harkonnen buildings because they're just very dark colored. Those are the research centers. I did in the lighter marbly color. All right, and here we go. And the lighting here doesn't really reflect on the issue. Like they're a little bit darker, a little more contrast. You can kind of see the marbling there. One of those things, I think they look a little bit better in person than they look on camera. But if you're wanting to try out this paint marbling, you can give it a go. It should give you another tool to use. Alright, thanks for tuning in, and send me a message if you give it a try, or if you have any more questions, and I'll try to help you out as much as I can. I'm not sure what's up next. I did say I was going to do a beginner tutorial starting from scratch using one of the expansions for this. So I think that might be in store. So stick around and keep an eye out. Thank you so much.